Doing it. Yes. It is a habit in some congregations that you'll bring your scripture to worship. It's another habit in other congregations that instead of hymnals in the racks, they've got Bibles in the racks, and it will be that expectation that you'll go ahead and, open on up to that. Look at that nice background there, Mitch.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, turn you up just a little. Okay, so we've come to 9:32 by some watches. By mine it says 9:31. So we got in person, we've got Mike and Vicky and Jan, who tells me David is just moments away, but he is enjoying time with Gerald, so you can't argue him that. On the line, we've got myself and we've got Mitch Patry in attendance. In the Bible, we are on about Job chapter 31, and I am going to, I guess I messed this up a little bit, so I got a plan, everyone. It's just a matter of not doing, how do I just hit that? Yeah, there we go. I go like that, do this. We're getting. Going to Job 31. I've got the New International Version. I think that's what, we've got that on the racks. I think Mitch has indicated that he uses is it the ESV or the?
It's the NIV, but it's a newer.
Oh, it's the 2011 NIV.
2011. Yeah.
Now I got to see. Yes, good. It looks nice. Okay, so Vicky, I think this is the first time we're having you in Bible study here for Job. Vicky, this is the first time I've got you in the Job Bible study here. Yep. Okay. Have you been following along on the videos at all? Okay. So I actually do have a few introductory comments for Job 31 here. So hopefully that will catch you up. But last week, the Camkeys, I thought this was adorable. Last week, the Camkeys brought their two of their grandchildren, Reese and Avery. And I loved this line that I gave them. I says, okay, you're coming into the middle of a Job Bible study. If you ever thought it was hard to wander into the middle of a movie, here you go. So, boy, oh boy. Well, all right. Job 31 gets us a lot of the way through Job. We're pretty well 3/4 of the way through Job. And chapter 31 are the final words of Job. And in this chapter, he is going to bring home his point. And really, it's the same argument that he has been doing the whole time, which I sum up as I didn't do anything that deserves the suffering and the misfortune that has come upon me. If I had, then I would gladly confess to it and suffer rightly, because I would love to just say, yes, this is what I've done wrong, and that's why I've lost all of my possessions and my children are dead, and I am now a sick man, and it hurts so bad I can barely think straight. But try as I might, I just cannot come up with any wrongdoing. I am an upright and blameless man. I fear God and I shun evil. I wish I could say otherwise, but truthfully I cannot. Chapter 31 here is going to make that point again. So we will read it and then we will review it. All right. I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a young woman. For what is our lot from God above, our heritage from the Almighty on high? Is it not ruin for the wicked, disaster for those who do wrong? Does he not see my ways and count my every step? If I have walked with falsehood, or my foot has hurried after deceit, let God weigh me in honest scales, and he will know that I am blameless. If my steps have turned from my path, if my heart has been led by my eyes, or if my hands have been defiled, then may others eat what I have sown, and may my crops be uprooted. If my heart has been enticed by a woman, or if I've lurked at my neighbor's door, then may my wife grind another man's grain, and may other men sleep with her, for that would have been wicked, a sin to be judged. It is a fire that burns to destruction. It would have uprooted my harvest. If I have denied justice to any of my servants, whether male or female, when they had a grievance against me, what will I do when God confronts me? What will I answer when called to account? Did not he who made me in the womb make them? Did not the same one form us both within our mothers? If I have denied the desires of the poor, or let the eyes of the widow grow weary, if I have kept my bread to myself, not sharing it with the fatherless, but from my youth I reared them as a father would, and from my birth I guided the widow. If I have seen anyone perishing for lack of clothing, or the needy without garments, and their hearts did not bless me for warming them with the fleece from my sheep, if I've raised my hand against the fatherless, knowing that I had influence in court, then let my arm fall from my shoulder and let it be broken off at the joint. For I dreaded destruction from God, and for fear of his splendor, I could do no such things. If I have put my trust in gold, or said to pure gold, you are my security. If I have rejoiced over my great wealth, the fortune my hands have gained, if I have regarded the sun in its radiance, or the moon moving in splendor, so that my heart was enticed secretly, and my hand offered to them a kiss of homage, then these would also be sins to be judged, for I would have been unfaithful to God on high. If I have rejoiced at my enemy's misfortune, or gloated over the trouble that came to him, I have not allowed my mouth to sin by invoking a curse against their life. Welcome in, David. If those of my household have never said, who has not been filled with Job's meat? But no stranger had to spend the night in the street, for my door was always open to the traveler. If I have concealed my sin as people do, by hiding my guilt in my heart because I so feared the crowd, and so dreaded the contempt of the clans that I kept silent, and I would not go outside, oh, that I had someone to hear me. I sign now my defense. Let the Almighty answer me. Let my accuser put his indictment in writing. Surely I would wear it on my shoulder. I would put it on like a crown. I would give him an account of my every step. I would present it to him as to a ruler. If my land cries out against me, and all of its furrows are wet with tears, if I have devoured its yield without payment, or broken the spirit of its tenants, then let briars come up instead of wheat, stinkweed instead of barley. The words of Job are ended. Questions or comments from the group here on that? Because believe you me, I come with comments. He is super sure of himself. He is super sure of himself. Now we're going to see that's not going to get him anywhere. But we're also have been able to demonstrate he's not wrong. It's just it's not going to get him anywhere. He's begging for the answer for why does all this suffering come upon me, and he's going to get an answer. It's not a really. It's an answer. It's a humbling answer, but it's not Job. You actually have done wrong. That's not the answer that he gets for why. He does not get the answer of Job. You actually deserve this. That's what the friends, by and large, have been trying to get him to see, that he did something wrong to deserve this, because that's how you make sense of evil. Bad stuff happening to bad people. Yeah, and we know Job, you look like a good guy, but you're not. And Job's saying, well, then show me where I'm not. And they couldn't. They just really couldn't. So you got Job pointing out here, you can't do it, guys. If that were the answer, I wish it were. That would make a lot of sense. So What is the answer? We'll get to that, but first we got to hear from Elihu before we get to the answer. So we're going to spend a little time in just a little bit, but first some comments here in chapter 31. Did you notice the structure that was used over and over again in the chapter? We got a lot of I talk in there. Yep. I. Did you notice the if and then? If I did this, if I did that, then this should have happened. If this, then that should have happened. If I would have done this, then that should have happened. If this, then that. Over and over again. If and then.
That happens a lot more.
It's the thing. It's the thing that's supposed to make sense. It's the thing that's supposed to make sense. He is saying, look, if I'd done all of this, then certainly it would be right for me to be having lost all of this. But all through this chapter, you get if and then. So verses 1 through 4, given in his first unit of thought that he wants to communicate here, he is condemning adultery. It's abhorrent. It's terrible. But his point is, but God knows I haven't. And he points out how terrible it is for adultery to look lustfully at a young woman in verse 1. And he comments, isn't this what ruins wicked people? Disaster for those who do wrong in verse 3. But then verse 4. But doesn't he see my ways and count my every step? We all acknowledge God sees all of our ways and counts our every step. And then we get into the beginnings of all the ifs and the thens. So verses 5 through 8. Please recall in verses 5 through 8, he's going to use the path metaphor for living. Very common in scripture, certainly common in just our own way of talking about living, like life is a journey, right? You know, I'm on the right path. Yeah, a path metaphor for living, super common to human experience, super common in scripture as well. So, verses 5 through 8, if he left the path of righteousness, then it would be right to lose everything that he's gained. Verse 5, if I walked with falsehood. Verse 8, then may others eat what I have sown, and may my crops be just uprooted and gone. Verses 9 through 12, back to the adultery thing. If I cheated on my wife, then it would be right for her to cheat on me. That's just verses 9 and 10.
He's kind of told her she's got to go to work there, grind and screen and kind of like
Verse 10.
not like a male thing.
No. Okay, we are grown-ups here, but this is at some point going to perhaps seen by somebody. I am really interested why the NIV includes the word grain in verse 10. You find another translation. Grain isn't there. Grain isn't there. My wife just showed up, so she gets here just in time to hear me decrying adultery. I'm right there with Job. Adultery is a terrible idea. Chapter 31, verse 10, and we have come to Vicky pointing out that when you read verse 10, then may my wife, if I have gone, verse 9, if I have gone to bed with another woman, I've been enticed, my heart has been enticed by her, I have longed for her, I've done that emotional affair followed by the physical affair, lurking at my neighbor's door. Verse 10 then of chapter 31. The NIV says, then may my wife grind another man's grain, and may other men sleep with her. The ESV translates this, then may my wife grind for another, see no mention of grain, and may other men bow down on her. Which NIV says, may other men sleep with her.
Yeah, well, she's paying for his sin.
No,
Well,
she's either on top or she's on the bottom. That's what's going on here. This is a graphic, poetic sex act thing going on.
On this one?
Verse 10.
Okay.
Again, I'm very confused why grain is involved in the NIV's
Well,
translation.
that's what I was thinking. I was thinking he's gonna send it over to the neighbors to do all his work. That's what it, yeah, see, that's the rules interpret different.
No, I'm
How about you, Mrs. Wrightley?
I think it means that she become a wife of another man, or just be a.
Yep, be another man's wife.
And do the housewifely things for him, not
Maybe,
her husband.
but it could also be she's on top in the first one.
We can move on now.
I can. It's uncomfortable. I kind of constantly get into this, but I have always been annoyed with how sanitarily we translate the Bible. Very frequently, these kinds of things come up where it's just real harsh language. No, it's saying that if I went to another woman, then my wife should go to another man. And verse 11, he points out this would be terrible. This would be a sin to be judged. This is a fire that burns to destruction, and it would have uprooted my harvest. This would have been the end of things. This would have been terrible. Verses 13 through 15. If I have mistreated or cheated my employees, well, then it would be right for God to mistreat me. If I deny justice to any of my servants, well, then what will God do? Didn't he make them and me? What right do I have to deny justice to any of my servants? To mistreat my employees, to cheat on them? Verses 16 through 23. If I have not been charitable, then it would be right for me to have nothing. If I've denied the desires of the poor. Verse 17, if I've kept my bread to myself. And then he makes a little side comment. From my youth, I've treated people like a father would take care of people. Verse 19, if I've seen anyone without clothes, and then they didn't, in the end, bless me for having warmed them. If I have, verse 21, raised up my hand against the fatherless because I have influence in court. If he has not been charitable when he had an opportunity to be charitable and generous, then it would be right for him to have nothing. Then let my arm fall from its shoulder and let it be broken off at the joint. Verses 24 through 28. The ifs and thens. See the ifs, see the thens. If I have worshipped false gods, gold, sun, moon, if I have worshipped false gods, then it would be right for God to condemn me. These would be sins to be judged. I would have been unfaithful to God on high. 29 through 40. If I have oppressed or repressed people, well, then it would be right for everything I have attempted to do to fail. Like rejoicing at my enemy's misfortune. If those in my household had never said that they have been well fed by Job's meat, if I've ever concealed my sin as people conceal their sin, again, keeping it all in the secret, not letting it come to light so that I don't get punished. Verse 38, if my land cries out against me, I've not been a good steward of my land. Certainly at the end of verse 39, if I've broken the spirit of its tenants, the people who have been paying, like all of verse 39, if I've eaten everything the land has grown, but I haven't paid for it, especially for those who have been tenants on the land, then let everything I've tried to do come to nothing. Briars instead of wheat, stinkweed instead of barley. That's what the more recent translation says. Is that I feel like stinkweed is new. Is stinkweed in the old translation? Weeds, just says weeds instead of barley in the older translation. All right. Newer translation says stinkweed. So that's kind of neat. A lot of ifs, a lot of ends as he is making his point here. Let me make this further comment. Interesting that verses 35 through 37 come when they do. They kind of get inserted in there. I mean, he's making a point here in verse 35. Look, I'm signing my hand to this. I am attesting that this is true. Why wouldn't he wait until he is finished talking before he says that? But he inserts it in there. And that, maybe you've been seeing it all along. There are so many other inserted comments all through this if and then. All through this if and then. So back in verse 6, he inserts a comment. Let God weigh me in honest scales, and he will know that I am blameless. Verses 11 and 12. That would have been wicked, a sin to be judged. It's a fire that burns to destruction, and it would have uprooted my harvest. Verse 18. But from my youth I have reared them as a father would. From my birth I have guided the widow. Verse 23. For I dreaded destruction from God, and for fear of his splendor I could do no such things. Verse 30. I have not allowed my mouth to sin by invoking a curse against their life. When you take all of these together, they climax there in verse 35. Oh, that I had someone to hear me. I sign now my defense. Let the Almighty answer me. Let my accuser put his indictment in writing. I would wear it on my shoulder. I would put it on like a crown. I would give him an account of my every step, and I would present it to him as a ruler. I haven't done anything wrong. I know what's right and wrong. Put me in the scales and weigh me. And there we go. He's in all of his ifs and thens, he's making his comments that, look, I was doing this all with informed by the word of the Lord, with his wisdom. It certainly hasn't turned out as it should have. Don't let, as okay, let me pause there. I got one more comment here on chapter 31, but questions or comments? Go, Vicky, go, and then Janice.
In 35, it says like, oh, that I had someone to hear me. Is that like a little bit of doubt in his faith that's not, because he's always listening?
All the way.
Like, is he saying, oh, if I had someone to hear me?
All the way through Job's arguments, he has been pleading for a hearing before the Lord. So he's repeating that here again. Yes, he has made the point on numerous times. It's almost like God's not paying attention because I can't find where to go to get this in front of him. So you hear once again, maybe not so much doubt, but the yearning, which, doubt and yearning, I think, go closely together in this one. Like, is he really there to listen? But, oh, I know he is. And so would you please listen? Because it just really doesn't appear like he is. I want this hearing before the Lord. He's going to get it. It's going to humble him, but it's what he's been yearning for the whole time. So yeah, you've got Job there given that very real human experience of crying out to the Lord for the answers, not getting them, and yet, the Lord has taken hold of his mind and taken a hold of his heart, convinced him and converted him, so that he continues to lift this up over and over. He doesn't just wash his hands of it. At no point does Job curse God and die, which is what the devil thought he would do. But it's not cursing God to wonder why he hasn't heard. What did Jesus say on the cross? My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from me? That's not cursing God and dying. That's the human experience of sin. Yes.
Is this saying works doesn't save you?
Mm-hmm. You're definitely getting that out of Job. Amen to that, because he's done all the works that you could ever possibly gotten done, and still here he is. Nicely spotted there. Good stuff. Yeah. We make him talk all the time as mayor.
I would say as the mayor, he's got some,
He's also got to be a great listener. This is definitely good mayoral responsibility, is to be an excellent listener. Mhm. All right, Mitch, anything on this? You're good about chiming in.
Everything sounds just as you described it.
Here we go. I want to make this last comment. Because I was noticing all the inserted comments about Joe, which follow that theme of, I did it right. I knew what I was doing. Show me where I'm wrong. I haven't been. But it's in the middle of all those ifs and thens and ifs and thens. So that strikes me as, don't let anyone tell you that current literature that we have these days is more sophisticated than ancient literature. Because there is this, all of these, you can take all of these inserted comments and sure enough, they follow a theme and they come to a culmination. All the ifs, thens, they follow a theme, they come to a culmination. Job is here delivering kind of 2 lines of thought as he leads you to his conclusion that he's come to. And it's all done together in the midst of a speech. It is craftily woven together, is how speechwriters might point it out as it gets examined here in later years. But as a good tapestry, usually the closer you get, the more artistic is the weaving and how it's all put together to see the intricate, how it works. The closer you get to Job's argument here, oh, he is weaving some ideas together here in a way that is very pleasant to gather in. Good job, Job. His words are ended. And that's, he will talk a few more times, but it's very different.
are his punishments that he's saying if I didn't have this would happen, is that God's punishment, or was that punishment of the time period that like ours, like, police make laws here, so, basically, if you steal something, you're gonna get arrested. Were these their local?
I don't know that these would have been. I am going to say that these are certainly going to be influenced by the agrarian setting in which Job lived his life, right? You don't really see anything there that looks in the nature like ordinances and laws that a group of people would have come together and agreed on, that this is how we're going to govern ourselves, or that a king would have put out there and said, this is how we govern ourselves. But Job, in his wisdom here, is saying, this is how it would go. I mean, none of us would be surprised. This would be right. If, in fact, I cheated on my wife should cheat on me. If I, in fact, have denied justice to my servants and I've mistreated them, well, then it would be right for God to mistreat me. I mean, he is God of both of us. If I have not been charitable, then certainly let my arm fall off from my shoulder and let it be broken at the joint. Let me, just lose ability. Let me, if I can't help others, then let me be put in a position where I need that help, and then find out that I should have, because now I need that help. If I have made gold into a god, or I have gone after the sun and the moon gods, which was, again, pretty common in their ancient Near Eastern setting, well, then that would be a sin to be judged. The Lord should condemn me for that. So as he's pointing out all of these sins, his thens are very much, these are the things that should happen. That would be right for that punishment to come upon me if I had done that sin. Enter into the words of Elihu, chapter 32. So Job, his words are ended, but he does not get the last word. About Elihu's 6 chapters. So he goes from 32, 34, 35, 36, 37, and 38. No, 30, he does.
He skipped 33.
I was like, why can't I count? All right, gotcha. So he does 32 through 37. Gotcha. That's what we got to do. About his 6 chapters. What do I got? I got 4 things. 4 things about Elihu's 6 chapters. Hello, Lynn.
Hi there.
In the first place, Elihu at least entertains Job's mediator idea. Back in chapter 19, he had said that profound word that only makes sense in the sight of Jesus coming down. I know that my Redeemer lives. And he is Redeemer there, mediator. So Elihu will at least entertain Job's mediator idea. This is something that Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, they never did. Job was the only one who ever talked about what it would be like to have somebody who would mediate between him and God. Bildad, Zophar, and Eliphaz, they never said anything about that. Job was the guy, and Elihu is at least going to entertain that idea in his speeches. In the second place, he is going to accent that suffering can have educational, can have disciplinary value. This can turn out for your good. This can shape you up right. Now, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar did that, but Elihu does it a lot. This is something that you could come out of this better for. In the third place, Elihu will challenge the other 3 friends' rigidity that misfortune is punishment for personal sin. So they have been pretty rigid that, Job, you did something wrong and you need to fess up because that's why this is all going wrong. Elihu will at least challenge that idea and say, maybe misfortune comes for other reasons, not just for you did something wrong. Why did this happen to me? What did I do wrong? Certainly that's a common idea as to why bad things happen. Well, we must have done something bad. That's Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. I'll be back. You'll be back. She'll be back. That was Lynn. Elihu will say that's maybe not always. Misfortune can come for other reasons. It's not just because you did something wrong. And in this way, what Elihu says, it does prepare the way for when Yahweh is the one talking for his 38, 39, 40, and 41, his 4 chapters. That Elihu is preparing the way for Yahweh's speech. So you kind of got that idea that maybe he's softening Job up in the grand scheme of things as you look at it after it's all done. Elihu's speeches get put in here because they're not Yahweh's speeches, but they're more of a nature like Yahweh's speeches than the 3 friends' speech. So they're kind of getting there. And also it's this idea that Elihu is just kind of getting you there, providing that transition, is in the final chapter, verse 37. What's Elihu looking at? A storm. He makes meteorological observations about the world. And then right away in chapter 38, where's God speak from? The whirlwind. So in chapter 37, Elihu is making these comments about lightning and thunder and all of this. And then all of a sudden in 38, and then God speaks out of the whirlwind, out of the storm. So if you're there in the scene with them, it's not too difficult to think that they're talking and they see a storm on the horizon coming. And Elihu uses that to then comment on God's great power. And sure enough, we get that transition into God speaking. And it's out of that storm that Elihu had just seen coming. Is that Lynn again?
It is
I'm not helpful. Thank you very much, dear lady. And also that Elihu is preparatory to Yahweh is that starting in verse 14 of chapter 37, he starts asking Job some questions that are a lot like the questions that Yahweh is going to ask. So the questions of Elihu and Yahweh are similar. But the fourth thing to know, about the 6 chapters of Elihu is that in the end, he is also going to be guilty of speaking wrongly to Job. So even though Elihu was right and useful on so many levels, he still has to learn with the rest of us that we are in need of conversion, not just conviction, not just to be convinced, but to be converted. So we might be firmly convinced, even like Elihu was firmly convinced of this wisdom, but just like Job, just like everyone here, we need Yahweh to convert us. And how does he do that? He speaks. He shows up on the scene. He makes his presence with us. He gives us his Holy Spirit. That's what needed to be done for Elihu. That's what needed to be done for Job. And in the end of the book, we see that's where it all ended up. But they didn't get there from their wisdom. They got there from the Lord showing up, speaking, making his revelation. I have spoken things now about Elihu's 6 chapters. One of the basic things that I probably could have pointed out to you is that his 6 chapters are divided into 4 speeches usually, because so Elihu said shows up a couple of times. Then Elihu said, or shows up the 4 times. Then Elihu said, and then finally Elihu continued. So since through the course of the speech, you get kind of beginning markers that you get when you're telling a narrative. Then he said, then he said, then he said. This is why it's understood that his 6 chapters are 4 different speeches. All right. So his first speech is chapter 32 and 33. So let us hear those chapters. So these 3 men stopped answering Job because he was righteous in his own eyes. But Elihu, son of Barachel the Buzite, of the family of Ram, became very angry with Job for justifying himself rather than God. He was also angry with the 3 friends because they had found no way to refute Job and yet had condemned him. Now, Elihu had waited before speaking to Job because they were all older than he. But when he saw the 3 men had nothing more to say, his anger was aroused. So Elihu, son of Barachel the Buzite, said, I am young in years. You are old. That's why I was fearful, not daring to tell you what I know. I thought age should speak. Advanced years should teach wisdom. But it is the Spirit in a person, the breath of the Almighty, that gives them understanding. It is not only the old who are wise, not only the aged who understand what is right. Therefore I say, listen to me. I too will tell you what I know. I waited while you spoke. I listened to your reasoning. While you were searching for words, I gave you my full attention, but not one of you has proved Job wrong. None of you has answered his arguments. Do not say we have found wisdom. Let God, not a man, refute him. But Job has not marshaled his words against me, and I will not answer him with your arguments. They are dismayed. They have no more to say. Words have failed them. Must I wait now that they are silent, now that they stand there with no reply? I too will have my say. I too will tell what I know, for I am full of words, and the spirit within me compels me. Inside I'm like bottled up wine, like new wineskins ready to burst. I must speak and find relief. I must open my mouth, my lips, and reply. And I will show no partiality, nor will I flatter anyone. For if I were skilled in flattery, my maker would soon take me away. Trying to advance the here we go. But now, Job, listen to my words. Pay attention to everything I say. I'm about to open my mouth. My words are on the tip of my tongue. My words come from an upright heart. My lips sincerely speak what I know. The Spirit of God has made me. The breath of the Almighty gives me life. Answer me then, if you can. Stand up and argue your case before me. I am the same as you in God's sight. I too am a piece of clay. No fear of me should alarm you, nor should my hand be heavy upon you. But you have said in my hearing, I heard the very words. I am pure. I have done no wrong. I am clean and free from sin. Yet God has found fault with me. He considers me my enemy. He fastens my feet in shackles. He keeps close watch on all my paths. But I tell you, in this, you are not in the right. For God is greater than any mortal. Why do you complain to him that he responds to no one's words? For God does speak, now one way, now another, though no one perceives it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls on people, as they slumber in their bed, he speaks in their ears and terrify them with warnings, to turn them from wrongdoing, to keep them from pride, to preserve them from the pit, their lives from perishing by the sword. Or someone may be chastened on a bed of pain, with constant distress in their bones, so that their body finds food repulsive, and their soul loathes the choicest meal. Their flesh wastes away to nothing, and their bones, once hidden, now stick out, and they draw near to the pit, and their life to the messengers of death. Yet, if there is an angel at their side, a messenger, 1 out of 1,000, to tell them how to be upright, and he is gracious to that person, and says to God, spare them from going down to the pit. I found a ransom for them. Let their flesh be renewed like a child's. Let them be restored as in the days of their youth. Then that person can pray to God and find favor with him. They will see God's face and shout for joy. He will restore them to full well-being, and they will go to others and say, I have sinned. I have perverted what is right, but I did not get what I deserved. God has delivered me from going down to the pit, and I shall live to enjoy the light of life. God does all these things to a person, twice, even 3 times, to turn them back from the pit, that the light of life may shine on them. Pay attention, Job. Listen to me. Be silent. I will speak. If you have anything to say, answer me. Speak up. I want to vindicate you. But if not, then listen to me. Be silent, and I will teach you wisdom. That's this first one. Because then in the next chapter it says, and then Elihu said. And we've come to 10:13, and I have got comments on all of that I will save for next time, which will be next week. But we got a moment or two here, if I can attempt to clarify, or if you've got a comment on Elihu's speech.
Saying God's in charge.
God is so in charge. The angel part in verse, yeah, is that where we got to? 23? Yeah. Angel becomes messenger. Talks about I found a ransom. That would be Elihu entertaining the mediator idea. If when you are sick and you're feeling bad and an angel comes, a messenger comes, and they have these words to speak to you, and they can tell you how to be upright. And what if that person says to God on your behalf, God, spare this one from going down to the pit. I found a ransom for them. So, again, Elihu is at least entertaining Job's idea that there might be someone who can speak on his behalf before God, and it would be for his good. This gets filled up to its fullness when the Christ comes. And Paul then acknowledges, here is your mediator, the one, the man Christ Jesus, before God and man. Elihu just went along with Job for the maybe guy. Well, could be pretty great. In the days of old, he spoke by the prophets, but now in the last days, he has spoken by his Son.
I think it's too that it can come from young as well as old. It's not just
age comes wisdom.
Ooh, don't we hope? Don't we hope? Oh, yes. All right.
But at the same time, the
We-
faith is in young all the way up.
Vicky's saying the wisdom and the faith in the young from the mouths of babes, he has ordained praise. Yes, indeed. We rejoice to hear the young among us. It is wonderful. We have come to 10:16. I'm going to pick up on the question that is just burning in your minds. Who are the Buzzites? Buzzites. I mean, we don't even know how to pronounce it right. All right. Love you all. Goodbye.
Hi, Pastor. Thank you.